Today we are going to continue through on our way to the gospel. The last two times we started off with creation, and we found out that it was good that God created the earth and that He was powerful and that He made us. But we also know that the world is still kind of chaos. There's still bad things that happen. So we know that that's not the good news. Then, last time we talked about why the world is chaotic, how we rebelled against God, and how in order to try to kind of fix things, the temporary fix was that God allowed us to die instead of live forever. And so death became good news so that we don't live in brokenness forever, but of course that's not the way God intended it. So it is not the good news. Today, we are going to kind of continue part of the story in God's story about what happened next. Because last time we left off with Adam and Eve being kicked out of the Garden of Eden. They were kind of on their own. And here's the interesting thing that happens next. God essentially stepped back and said, okay, if you want to go it alone, if you don't want my guidance, if you don't want my direction, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to let you go. If you've ever heard the saying, if you love someone enough, you do what to them?
Let them go.
Let them go. Set them free. Let them, the whole Frozen song, don't start please, I hear that enough. But if you love someone enough, you let them go, and if they love you, they'll come back. God essentially did that with us. He kind of said, okay, if you want to go and do these things without my guidance, without my support, what have you, go it alone. Now, the consequences to that were not very good. Why? Again, last time we talked about, or last year, and we talked about this a little bit, when there is no God, there is no right, no wrong, no justice, no fairness. Now that doesn't mean that you can't do right, you can't be good, you can't have justice, you can't be fair, but you just don't have any ground for it. You don't have any reason to say why you should be good. So if there's no God, why be good? Why should you be good? Give me a good reason to be kind and compassionate to someone else without God. Now some people say, okay, the reason you can be kind and compassionate without God is that one of these days you may need someone's help. And so you should be kind to others so that you receive kindness if you ever need it. Let me ask you this question. Is that reason other people-centered, or is it self-centered? How is it self-centered?
Because it's for you.
You're only doing it.
You're only doing it for your own benefit. You're only doing it because you may need it someday. And so it becomes a very self-centered act. And remember, we talked about the first sin, the original sin, was the sin of being self-centered, wanting to be God ourselves. And so without transcendence, without the desire to do good simply for the act of doing good, most of the things that we do end up being very, very self-centered. We do what is right in our own eyes. We do what is right for our own benefit. And that's exactly what started happening to humanity after God kicked them out of the Garden of Eden. In Genesis chapter, or whatever it is on your paper, 6, you have the start of the story of Noah and the great flood. And that's kind of the next part that we get into in the biblical history. But it starts off with God looking down at humankind and saying, everybody is doing what is right in their own eyes. Everybody is self-centered. They have become evil. They have become evil because they're just looking out for themselves. Now, why is this necessarily a problem? Let me ask you this question. See, all of you in here, there's no right, no wrong. You're all trying to do your own good for your own self. Who in here is going to end up top dog?
No one.
How do you know no one?
There's no right and no wrong.
No, there is no right and no wrong, but then how do you...
There's no rules then.
There's no rules, so who's going to end up making the rules?
Everybody's
He's
just
bigger.
Probably the biggest guy, right? The one who's
yeah.
biggest of all?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Better.
Welcome, Calvin.
Yeah,
Come on,
you
have a seat.
Yeah, you late.
Probably the biggest, probably Casey's the biggest guy. You know, doesn't mean he's the toughest, but he's the biggest one in here. Maybe. You don't know that. But see, here's the deal, you know, it ends up being survival of the fittest, and here's how it will go down, because if a couple of you don't like the way Casey's trying to make the rules because he's bigger, y'all can kind of join forces together and try to get rid of him. And, you know, put him down. So if 3 or 4 of you gang up on Casey, you know, 4 against 1 that's not good odds. I hate to say it, you're going down with the wrong one. But then you 4, if y'all are doing good and y'all start having conflicts between one another, you end up fighting within each other. And so all of a sudden, if everybody has their own idea of what is best for them, if everyone has their own idea of what is right and wrong, what's going to end up happening?
There's never gonna be one right and wrong.
There's never going to be right and wrong, but what's going to end up happening in the long run?
No one's gonna make it.
No one's going to make it. Why? Everybody's going to be doing what with each other?
Fighting.
Everybody's going to be fighting with each other. And in fact, that's exactly what the Bible says happened, that the world was full of violence. Now, you may say, okay, whatever, this happened a long time ago, you know, what relevance does it have for us today? Now, I'm going to tell you right now that in history, we have seen what happens when God gets taken out of the picture, when there is no transcendence, when there is no right or wrong, and survival of the fittest takes place. Now, you'll read a little about this in my sermon, but I'm sure you recognize
Nazi.
that right there. You know the history, right? You know about the Holocaust, right? Do you know where the Nazis?
Oh, what's his name?
Hitler.
Hitler, yeah.
Hitler. Do you know where Hitler? Do you know where Hitler got most of his thought?
The Bible. Jew.
Not the Bible.
No, he killed Jews.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah,
the
he
Bible.
killed Jews.
Innocent boys.
You must not listen to history class.
Arizona.
Hitler
Yeah, it seems like it.
was very influenced by a philosopher by the name of Nietzsche. Nietzsche. Big word there, Nietzsche. Now Nietzsche, he was around the 1830s or so, 100 years or so before Hitler. Maybe a little later, maybe 1870, something like that. But he was a philosopher, and he started, you know, coming up with all this philosophy, and he was one of the first one that coined the term
God is dead.
God is dead. Now, some of you saw the movie God is Not Dead. It was a spin on this philosopher here who said God is dead. God is out of the picture. There is no God. There is no transcendence. And one of the things that Nietzsche began teaching and saying that, you know, if there is no God, you know, everything that counts is just here on the earth. And what we see happening in nature is what we need to implement even within humankind. So if you go out into nature, I know some of you here hunt and fish and what have you, how does nature work?
One animal kills another to get food.
Right, one animal kills another to get food. Which animals get killed?
The deer.
The littlest, the weakest ones, right? It's survival of the fittest. And so Nietzsche said, okay, in order for evolution to work, the weakest and the sickest need to be killed out. So Nietzsche says, okay, the way evolution works, the way you get stronger is you kill out the weak, you kill out the those who are not smart enough or those who are sick, And that's how evolution takes place. And so he said, okay, the same thing needs to happen with people. And so Nietzsche said, okay, whenever an earthquake happens and people get killed by earthquakes, that's a good thing. Because it's weeding out the weak. Whenever people die of illness, that's a good thing. Because it's weeding out the weak. And anyone who shows compassion, anyone who cares for someone who is sick, they're wrong. They need to stop doing it. In fact, Nietzsche was completely anti-Christian. He said Christians need to stop caring for the weak. They need to stop caring for the least of these because they are hindering evolution. And what he wanted to get to was
Superman.
the Superman. We'll put that in quotes. In German, it's Übermensch. I think that's how you say it. But we want to get to the Superman, and so we need to kill out the weak, we need to kill out anything, and we need to move towards stronger and stronger people. So when the Nazis actually came to power under Hitler, did they start with the Jews?
Yes.
No.
Didn't listen to history class.
No.
Berkeley.
Well, do you know?
No.
Okay.
We didn't go to that question.
I knew Hitler though.
When Hitler and the Nazis came to power, who did they start killing off first? Was it the Jews?
Not the
It was
Polish.
not the Jews. No, it was not
Wait,
the
no,
Polish.
It was everyone
no.
in their way.
Was it the Christians?
No, they
the
started
No, they
Nazis.
with the mentally
It started.
and physically
I thought
Again, so
some
you-
ill.
So,
hungry guy got killed like
By
the
what?
king and
Your
prince
homework.
or
that's
something.
it.
The king and queen
Thank
of
you.
Hungary or something
welcome.
got
That's
killed.
World War One.
Sprite.
Oh,
That was World War One. World War Two, the Nazis started with the mentally and the physically ill. They rounded them up. They took them to concentration camps. They killed them off.
So they would have killed Stephen Hawking if they had the chance.
They would have killed Stephen Hawking if they had the chance.
Let them all know.
Because they were weak. Because these were the people who were the infirm. They need to be taken out because they will not lead to the Superman. Now the reason they graduated to the Jews is because the Jews had money.
So that is nothing. That'd be their.
Ah, yes, but remember, the greatest good for the greatest of society, and when society needs money, who do you gotta take it from?
Rich
Take it
people.
from the people who are the richest. The
Robin
Jews were the
Hood.
ones who had the most money, and they found theological justification from Luther,
Luther.
Martin Luther.
I remember him.
Because Martin Luther wrote some really nasty stuff about the Jews, and so Hitler used that, even though Hitler was not a Christian. Anybody who tells you Hitler was a Christian, they're lying. Okay,
Lying.
he was not.
Lion, King, Beast.
I thought Martin
Who was a
Luther
Jew?
was against the Jews.
He was. And I'm
Wait,
telling
well,
you.
dang.
I thought he was like
With
with the Jews.
He was.
No,
he
he's
was.
against
He ended up being against them because they did not convert to his understanding of Christianity. So Hitler found that Martin Luther didn't like the Jews. You know, being that Germany was the majority Lutherans, he said, okay, these Jews, they're inferior. They're sons of Satan. He used Luther's own writings against them. Said, okay, we will round them up. We will take their wealth. We will take their money. We will use it as a nation, and we will get rid of them. So. Again, Nietzsche's justification of there is no God led them to commit atrocity and kill over 6 million people. Because there is no God. And again, based right in Nietzsche's philosophy. This was not just isolated to Germany. Never hear of that guy?
No, Stalin and Stalin.
Stalin.
Nope, never heard of him.
Stalin was a leader in Russia, heavily influenced by Karl Marx, who again went the no God route. Stalin, in order to keep power, achieve Russia's goals, killed
20.
20 million people.
That's a lot of people.
How many Jews or like just normal?
They killed the Jews too. I mean, he didn't like the Jews. Just often. Because, again, to keep power, to keep things in line, to keep order, just willingly. I mean, if you were against him, I mean, he just eradicates you. If you were looking at people wrong, he would have you shot and killed.
Put Santa in on that list.
Well,
Oh,
Santa
yeah.
was a different story.
Yeah.
He was a dictator, yeah, I understand that. But these are modern day examples of people who their philosophy, their understanding of the way the world worked was based with no God, and they killed 20 million people, 6 million people without any
26 million.
regret, remorse, Anything else? Because they thought they were heading to.
I thought Russia
Right.
came with us to fight Germany in World War II.
They did, but Stalin was after that. And when Stalin started imposing his own rule, his own understanding of things, this is what you have happen.
He messed up.
Now, I'm putting that out there to show you that what you believe has consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And how you implement it has consequences. And when the Bible talks about these things happening, when there was no God and that there was violence and that everybody was looking out for themselves, the Bible is lifting up true things about human nature. And so even though it was written thousands of years ago, it's still very, very relevant. It's still very, very true for us today. So, I mean, this is what was going on, with Stalin and Hitler. They thought there was no God. All of this chaos was breaking out. Now imagine that on a global scale. Imagine that with the entire world population. That's what you have going on in Genesis chapter 6. It's ugly.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is fighting against everybody. Everybody is doing what they think is right. It's a horrid, horrid world. And God looks down at it and says, do I want this to continue?
No.
Weren't the Nazis
That's why they
their
killed
money
Hitler.
too?
Yes.
Because they were a poor country.
Yeah, that's why they're taking the Jews, because they were a poor country. Yes, Ray, you're right. God looked down at that and said, no, don't want this to continue. This is really bad. What do you do? What do you do? When something is that out of whack, when something is that messed up, what do you do?
Take him out.
Screaming at him.
You take it out. No, well, see, God had created this. I mean, this was His creation. And I am sure it pained God to do this, but God looked down and said, this cannot last. This is not good. We've got to cleanse it. We've got to put an end to this violence. We've got to put an end to this hatred. But there was at least one righteous person. And you'll know the name because you probably have heard the stories.
Noah.
Noah was a righteous man. He was doing most of the things that were right in God's sight. And so God came to Noah and says, look, I'm going to destroy the world. And so I want you to build an ark.
Mm-hmm.
Giant boat.
Put all them two.
All the animals 2 by 2 and everything
Yeah.
else, because I'm going to wipe evil from the face of the earth. Now you know the story of how Noah put all this stuff together and everything, and there was this great flood, and people debate whether or not this flood actually ever happened or anything else like that. There's enough evidence there that somewhere there was a great flood, a giant flood. It's in most cultures' myths of that time. Somewhere along the way there was this great flood.
Shut that up.
It better be Jesus calling, man.
Probably.
Please turn the volume
Oh
down.
no, it's Chris.
I don't even know.
Please turn the volume down.
Chris.
Yeah. Chris is
All right, thank you. You can call me. All right.
Call FaceTime him later.
Okay. Now, whether or not this flood was a global thing, it really doesn't matter. The point of the story is trying to teach us something about who. Who's the Bible about? God. You remembered some of your homework questions. Good job.
God.
So this story is more about God than it is about the world and about us. But God told Noah, saved Noah, his family, saved the animals on the ark, cleansed the earth, wiped things clean, got rid of the violence, got rid of the evil, washed it away. And you know the story of reigning for 40 days and 40 nights. Hopefully you know the story about getting on Mount Ararat. And then the next part that's really important is afterward. The ark comes to rest. The animals and Noah get out. And God makes a covenant with Noah and his family. Important word. It's kind of a binding agreement. It's a legal agreement. It says, okay, if you do this, then I promise to do this. We make covenants all the time. A lot of them are verbal. Unfortunately, in these days, a lot of times your word is not binding. I mean, I don't know how many people have told you they're going to do something and then not done it. Ever happened to you?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Ellie.
How frustrating is it?
So
This
frustrating.
guy's doing it to me.
What I want?
Yesterday.
Frustrating when you
I
break
didn't
covenant.
see this guy yesterday.
But there is something about our human nature that breaks covenants all the time. We'll get into that in a little bit. But when Noah and the animals, when the ark was parked, God said, okay, I'm going to make my covenant with you. I will never destroy the earth again by a flood. Why do you think God said that? Why do you think he said, I will never destroy the earth again by a flood?
He might destroy it.
Yeah, he might destroy it in a different way, but
Tornado.
No, he will never destroy the earth again like that. Why?
because it's bad and he didn't want to
So
all those
so
people
now we
just
trust him.
because.
Yeah, you're right, read. God did not want to destroy the earth. God didn't want to do it.
He was forced to.
He was forced to. Didn't want to. I mean, this was his creation. This was something he loved. This is something he cared about. He didn't want to do it. Similar vein, Friday, I have to take my old puppy dog in and have her put down.
Aww.
Think I'm happy about it?
It
No.
stinks.
You guys
No,
my dad.
it rips my heart out. I don't want to do it. Why?
Because it's your dog.
It's my dog. But now, you know, she's arthritic. She's crippled up. She probably broke her toe the other day. It's
Wow.
infected.
Okay, stop. You can stop now.
That's
Well,
nasty.
when she walks, a lot of times she stumbles and falls.
Aw.
That's what Mr. Heavy's dog did.
Fucking
She's
go.
falling
What
apart. I
does she
can't do
have?
anything.
Does she
Huh?
have a disease?
She's just old.
Oh.
She's 15 years old. Well, that's 15 years
That's
old.
not old.
For a dog.
Times
that's
5,
old.
Ellie. I mean,
Times
times
seven.
Times
7.
7. That's 105. Is that
Man,
old?
I'm gonna live to
I had
160.
a dog that was like 20 years old.
I'm gonna eat all my
The
vegetables.
little ones last longer.
That's
She's
what my mommy said.
No, he was like a border collie.
yeah, she's at the end. And I mean, I don't want to put her down,
But you
but
gotta take out of him.
I've got to. I've got to, even though it breaks my heart. Same thing with God. God had to do this. God had to make things clean. But it broke his heart.
But it made the world better.
And so after he did this, he told Noah, I will never do it again. I want you to do certain things, you know, and these are the things I want you to do. These are the things that I promise. And after he conferred with Noah and established that covenant, he made a sign and a seal of the covenant.
The rainbow.
The rainbow, yeah, but here's the deal. In Scripture, it doesn't say God hung a rainbow in the sky. In the Bible, it doesn't say rainbow. Yes, sir.
Like the Golden Covenant or whatever? That treasure thing? Is that what they're talking about?
No.
Oh, man.
But,
This is another covenant?
huh?
Is that another
Yeah, that was another one. It did say that God hung his bow in the sky. His, very good. His bow.
Rain.
That's exactly what it is, Rice. God hung his bow in the sky, his bow and arrow, which means what? When you hang your bow up, what does that mean?
War.
You stop.
In Indian language, it means war. I remember that.
No, war would be picking your arrow.
Yeah, when you pick your arrow up, when you pick your bow up, that means you're going to war.
Oh. So does that mean preparing?
You're.
That means he
So
put
when
it up. He
So
put
that
up
means
his bow.
So he's going to
doesn't
war.
want to go to war. He put it away.
Whenever he put it away, the flooding started. Oh, yeah.
When he put it away, it's done. I am no longer
Chopping Indians.
going to be the God of destruction. I do not want to do this ever again. Yes, ma'am.
So then why is the rainbow there?
It is a sign. That is the
To make it
sign
pretty.
of
Yeah.
the covenant. That's the sign of the bow.
That's my high water.
Whoa.
That God put his bow in the clouds, and each time the rainbow occurs, God remembers the covenant that he made to never destroy the earth again.
So every time it rains,
So like
the covenant.
that's why it doesn't after it rains.
Yeah, because it's showing, it's like to remembers the covenant.
Yes,
No.
God remembers the covenant.
So you're
that he made.
saying if that rainbow didn't appear in the sky, that God would destroy us?
Yeah.
No, God won't destroy us because he promised.
Well,
God
that's
is
what Rise is
faithful.
saying.
God is faithful. We're the ones who screw up all the time. Now, here's the problem. It's great that God hung his bow in the sky. It's great that God promised that he would never destroy the earth in that way again. That's awesome. But what was the problem that led to that in the first place? What was the problem of
Us
The
doing
flood.
stupid things.
Okay, us doing what?
These
Things.
not following directions.
Not just not following directions. What was
It's okay.
what was the problem? We were the problem. And what was the problem about us?
We were self-centered.
Self-centered. Why do people break promises? Why do people break covenant that they make with you?
So
And
now
so
I
you're
can
a liar.
decide.
So they can get what they want, but not give you what you want.
All right, yeah, I think you're right on to that, Braden. Usually, people come up to me a lot, and they say, you know, Pastor, I need to come to church. I need to come see you in church. I'm gonna be there this Sunday. And then on Sunday morning, I look around in the pews.
And you're not there.
Where are they?
So after.
So what happened?
Where'd they go?
Why didn't they come?
Maybe I had a birthday party to go to.
But what did you do with me? But what did they tell me?
They
They were
gonna come.
Why?
And so, something that became more important to them came up and they broke their promise to me.
It's okay.
So why do covenants get broken?
So,
Self-centeredness. Now, the fact that God hung his bow in the sky, and the fact that God cleansed the earth, the fact that God saved Noah, did that do anything to deal with the self-centeredness of people's hearts? So is it good news that God hung his bow in the sky and will never destroy the earth by flood again? Is that good news? Yes, it is. But it's not the gospel, because it does not deal with the self-centeredness of our hearts. So, next month, we will start getting together and talking about how God is going to start addressing this. Because God knows that he cannot leave us to our own devices. If God leaves us to our own devices without any understanding of right and wrong, what's the world going to go right back to?
Fighting.
Fighting.
Does God want that?
No.
That's
No.
basically what's gonna happen.